Simon Fisher-Becker, perhaps better known as the bright blue Dorian Maldivar intergalactic black marketeer, is a natural raconteur who has performed his one-man show to captivated audiences worldwide. It was out of these shows that his autobiographical trilogy was born. Here are just a few things that the world has had to say about the memoirs of Simon Fisher-Becker. On My Dalek Has a Puncture. Kay Lawrence from the UK, talking about My Dalek Has a Puncture, says simply, gripping, fascinating, enlightening, funny and sad. Recommended. An anonymous reviewer on the same book says, a true inspiration, a fantastic read. Simon certainly has been through some of life's worst moments and has come through them. He is a true inspiration for everyone who feels like giving up. He is such a charming man in person and his one-man show is fantastic. A highly recommended read. I wish there were more than 5 stars to give. This book deserves them all. On My Dalek Has Another Puncture. Brian Jacobson from Cardiff says, what a page-turner. Very funny, sometimes sad but always entertaining. Above all, it's helped me to think about my own demons and how I can cope with them. Highly recommended. From Jenny Coles from Wellington, New Zealand. What a pick-me-up. This is such an easy read, a rich, honest, at times disturbing account of life experiences shared with hilarious anecdotes that have me laughing out loud. Having met Simon Fisher-Becker, I found him to be a sincere, genuine, kind person. My Dalek Has Another Puncture is just a fraction of what the man is about. Do follow his work. From Rick Cross, from Alabama, USA. If you only know Simon Fisher-Becker as Dorian Maldivar from the 11th Doctor era, you're missing out on a premier essayist, philosopher and wit. Just in time for Christmas, he's issued My Dalek Has Another Puncture, the second of his autobiographical works reflecting on his relationship with Doctor Who, a rocky childhood dodging bullies, and life as a working actor and artist. By turns inspiring, moving and funny as hell, Simon's latest is a perfect holiday prize for that Whovian in your life. Let Zygons Be Zygons. In the third and final book, Let Zygons Be Zygons, Simon follows the track of the first two in charting the ups and downs of a long career with brutal honesty, delving into the dark side of life, as well as the rewards of becoming known to sci-fi fans worldwide as Doctor Who's bright blue Dorian Maldivar. In this final volume, Simon talks about his unexpected role of agony uncle to people who recognise their own experiences in the problems that he talks about openly. Simon is clear. He never gives advice, just makes suggestions, believing in the importance of allowing people to make their own decisions and taking responsibility for their actions. There were those, familiar with the darker corners on which Simon intended to shine a light, who advised him not to write the final book, but he did. Let Zygons Be Zygons is a full and frank account, bearing his trademark honesty. In Simon's own words, writing these books has been cathartic, to say the least.
Introduction. My life changed in June 2010. Until then, I'd been a jobbing actor bumbling along quite comfortably from one job to another. I use the term bumbling because in the main I floated from one job to the next, rather like a bumblebee from one flower bed to another. I was enjoying myself. I didn't notice at the time, though. I wasn't taken seriously by friends or family, nor that some in the industry thought I was simply an idiot. Then came that Saturday, June the 4th, 2010. It marked my first appearance as Dorian Maldivar. I was a large, blue, intergalactic black marketeer who had a brief exchange with Alex Kingston, who was playing Dr. Song. This was no ordinary job. This was my first appearance in Doctor Who. My simple 6-line exchange with Dr. Song caught the imagination of sci-fi fans worldwide. Within weeks, I had invitations for sci-fi conventions all over the world. Even more startling for a jobbing actor, from being one in the crowd of hopefuls auditioning, I had casting directors and others getting in touch to simply check my availability for work. Sci-fi conventions are superb, but there's no handbook. When I first walked into the NEC in Birmingham for memorabilia in November 2010, I hadn't a clue what to expect. No one had told me what I had to do or what I should prepare. I was fortunate one of the other celebrity guests was the utterly delightful Kenneth Cope, who couldn't have been more generous in the help he gave a sci-fi convention virgin. Those early conventions were a blur, but now as a seasoned attendee I can describe them as part car boot sale, part antiques fair, crossed with a zoo. My enduring memories are of rows and rows of tables at which celebrities sit and sign photos and other items all day long, and crowds of fans, delightful, sweet, charming and friendly people, many of whom construct and wear the most amazing costumes, becoming the characters of their sci-fi worlds they follow. If everyone I'd met over the years had been as delightfully friendly as those I've met in sci-fi conventions, some things in my life might never have happened, and things could have been different. For one thing, I would have avoided falling victim to a life-changing encounter. But I'm getting ahead of myself. At the many conventions I've attended, from intimate gatherings of a couple of 100 to over 130,000, I've always felt welcome. Feeling welcome is one thing, but it didn't prevent moments of angst. As well as signings, celebrities are asked to attend panels where they are interviewed and take questions from the floor. These events are unrehearsed and anything might be asked. Over the years, I've learned to anticipate a set of questions that crop up regularly, but those first few times were quite intimidating. At one American convention, where I was the only Doctor Who actor present, I turned up for my panel, only to discover there was no interviewer. The organisers were in a panic and asked me if I could do a one-man stint. Taking the part of both interviewer and interviewee and stepping in unrehearsed to do a live spot on an otherwise empty stage was not something I'd anticipated. I could hardly turn them down. And after all, I couldn't let down the fans who were waiting with bated breath. So on I went. It was when this exact situation happened a second time, I decided to put together a slideshow, which I have since used as my standby interviewer. I'm now used to certain sets of questions regularly asked. These include: how did you become an actor? Why did you want to become an actor? I want to be an actor. What do I need to do? What other jobs have you done? How much of you did you bring to the role of Dorian Moldovar? But it was another set of regular questions that sparked the seed of this book. Can I buy a copy of your autobiography? Why haven't you written one? When is it coming out? The questions came particularly from America and Australia. My initial thought was, crikey. And then I found myself generating a whole set of questions of my own. Where do I start? What do I include? And one that haunted me probably more than it should have. What do I call it? Somehow, without a title, the idea just didn't take shape. Initially, I thought of On the Cutting Room Floor, because that's where the vast majority of my TV and film work had ended up. But that wasn't an inspiring title. The idea of a book remained just an idea. Where there's Doctor Who, there will be Daleks. I encountered numerous manifestations in my travels around the sci-fi circuit. Many people build their own. Groups often band together to build a Dalek. In complete contradiction to their malevolent presence in the series itself, most handmade Daleks are used to help raise money for charity. It was in Peterborough in May 2012 that my moment of Dalek enlightenment came. As part of the greatest show in the galaxy, a Dalek competition was held. My fellow celebrity guests and I were asked to decide the winners. The event would culminate in a parade of Daleks around the show. Along with everyone else, I was looking forward to seeing the massed Daleks and was wondering about the venue generally, enjoying the ambience, when I came across a young girl crying in the corner. When I asked why she was crying, she turned her forlorn face to me and said, "My Dalek has a puncture." This meant her Dalek couldn't go in the parade and was therefore disqualified from the competition. To my shame, my first thought was not sympathy for her plight, but delight at the idea that popped into my head. Yes, I thought, that's the title of my autobiography. But if I thought having a title meant the book was all but written, I had another thing coming. The next stage grew gradually. I was approached by a couple of small pub theatres asking if I could give a talk. Rather than the usual panel and questions that I used to do, they wanted something under the umbrella of an evening with. My first thought was, blimey. This was something different. What could I do? The answer was obvious. I would combine my version of the convention one-man panel and all those nebulous ideas around an autobiography. There wasn't time enough in the format for a full life story, but I hit upon the idea of a trilogy, less an autobiography in the traditional sense than anecdotes on an autobiographical theme. The one-man show grew and prospered. The three-part structure worked well. 1. My Dalek has a puncture. Tells of my life and experience up to when I'm offered Dorian Moldovar in Doctor Who. 2. My Dalek has another puncture. Explores how things have changed for me since appearing in the BBC's flagship sci-fi drama. 3. Keeping in with the Doctor Who theme, Let Zygons Be Zygons covers how I have dealt with my baggage over the years. In my show, I included tools of the trade and hints on how to find acting work for those starting out. People liked what I did and told me they could identify with what I had to say. Then I found people telling me how they applied my ideas to their own lives and occupations. I found myself labelled as a motivational speaker. Bloody hell! And so to the final link in the chain that led to this book. I accepted an invitation to Fantasticon in Hull in 2014. This sci-fi convention saw the launch of a set of sci-fi novels and was more focused on authors and gamers than the usual conventions. It was organised by publisher Dan Grubb of Fantastic Books Publishing, one of whose authors credited him with being probably the most positive, if occasionally unhinged person I've ever met in my life. This same Dan Grubb came to see my show, gave it a glowing review and offered me a publishing deal. Crikey! And that is how the book got started and why you're listening to My Dalek Has a Puncture. So, where to start?